hoping this works this time. I'm not entirely sure why it wasn't working. This is going to be a really good live video, so I'm really hoping that this works. There we go. Okay. Hello, hello.
Hi. Oh, I thought it was me. I was like, I wonder if I could do this on my laptop. I don't know if that's a thing.
We'll just blame it on Instagram because it's easier to do that.
Okay.
It is. So anyway, we'll do a super quick introduction just of both of us since we're going live together. So I'm Chelsea. I am the owner of Honeybee Social. I do social media management for podcasters and authors and the fun creative types. So that is what I do. And then I'm going live today with Raquel. So I'll let you introduce yourself.
Okay, sure. I'll be super quick. My name is Raquel, and I have an online business where I support professionals who are either figuring out their next steps, whether they're trying to quit or job hop, as we'll be talking about today with Chelsea, or start their own business.
I love that. So yeah, I just want to talk. Sorry, I'm just having so many difficulties here with these comments. Okay, so to kick off the conversation, I want to start with talking about job hopping. That's actually how I think I found you. I think I saw on your profile you were talking about job hopping, and instantly I just knew I needed to connect with you. Job hopping is something that I've done a lot. So I want to hear about your experience with job hopping and how that's kind of shaped how you got to where you are right now. I would love if you could tell me more about that.
Oh man, yeah. And I honestly feel like job hopping is something people either, it's like a hush-hush taboo type thing where it's not okay to say that, we've job hopped or like we're a temp to hire or, I'm just in between things. But I feel like it's a real reality and it can help create careers. So I think for me, I got my degree in English, and that was its own thing, trying to figure out what I wanted to get a degree in that was useful in the marketplace. But then I started to think like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do now? With this degree in English, I never wanted to be a technical writer. I didn't have a specific like vision in mind. And so slowly I started temp roles. Government contract roles here in the DC area are everywhere. And so I started with that, but I never saw a career. I think traditionally you stick with something, you go up a corporate ladder, you stick to a company, you make more money, and that never felt, I don't know, it never landed. I never found a company I really enjoyed. I never felt challenged in a technical writing specifically, but yeah, it just felt hard. And I think after a while, I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to keep doing this because you make more money when you leave jobs. You start to learn more about yourself. I feel like when you're in new teams and new environments, and I was like, I like this. I like not having to commit to something that in the end, like, oh man, you've invested 10 years in this company, and then, I don't know, you could do a lot with that, but like that was not the path. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. I really like when you're talking about when you were kind of in school and you were kind of thinking like, what am I supposed to do? And I think we always have this thought of like what you're supposed to do. And for people who are job hoppers or, big dreamers, we kind of get into this mindset of like, okay, I went to school, now I'm supposed to do this, but it doesn't really align with what you want. And I feel like what you're saying is basically how I felt in the same situation. It's like, okay, I did this and I was supposed to do it, but it just doesn't feel right, right?
Right, and a lot of it is really money. Like we get jobs because in the US, we have student debt and, what other type of debts situations they might be in. So it really becomes a money situation. Like what job is going to help me live that life or help me get to where I need to go? And that job may or may not be fulfilling. it may or may not be related to the degree we got. And so it's just like, what career? What are we even talking about? Like, what does that exist anymore? Like, yeah, so it gets really challenging. And then we have to be the stewards or like the captains of our ships, and then come into all these other things of kind of putting on a performance of like showing up to a job interview and looking acceptable, or saying things that feel the way that they want it to feel to be in their ecosystem, or and then it just becomes so much more. And it's like, if that's not you or how you wanted to live your life, and nobody taught these things in college, then it's like, I didn't prepare for this. Like, I didn't know this was how it was supposed to be. What's happening? Yeah.
I feel that so much, because I feel like even from such a young age, you know, you kind of always see yourself as this like, go to school, get a job, like that kind of path as very linear, when the reality is that pathway is not linear for, I'll say anybody. It's not linear for anybody. I don't know anybody who's like done it in those steps. And then, yeah, you're right. Like, when you go into these job interviews and do all of these things, it's almost like you're putting on like your fake persona almost just to fit in with this job, basically to make money, but you don't really care about it. And then after a while, you're just like, okay, I've done this job for 2 years. I can't do this thing. You have to move on.
Right. And then that's the thing, is like, when is enough enough? And then in society, we're not told, you know, you can say no, or like there's limits. Like, I think now all of that is okay, but back in the day, however that, you know, that whole expression is, it was really hard. And it's like, people don't feel comfortable setting a resignation letter. And if it's not a temp job, or, you know, if you know that it's only temporary, but they don't know that, like, then you get stuck, because it's like, you know, I'm used to it and this is okay. And we settle for lack of a better word. And it just gets hard, because then it's like, oh, I could have been learning other things or doing other, and now I think there's more possibility, but to like take risks and things. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard to know when is enough, and take those steps. Yeah.
Yeah, and just a quick note for anybody watching live, if you have any experience with job hopping or anything we're talking about, please leave a comment. We'd love to get your input. But yeah, like, knowing when enough is enough is so hard to really know. I always found, like, for myself, I find the moment I stop learning in a role where I feel like I have learned every aspect of the job, that's when it's like, do I sit here and do this job even though I know everything, or do I move on? And it's kind of like a balance, because on the one hand, you get to learn more, but then on the other hand, you have to learn more,
Right.
you know?
Right. And then I mean, I'm sure, you know, we can relate, but then like the job becomes managing the people, or like commuting, or whatever that is. And the job is no longer, oh, I get to do graphic design, or I get to, you know, do whatever it is in the field. Like, the job then becomes the bureaucracy and like the office politics, and like for people in the corporate world specifically, like, and then it's just, well, I didn't, you know, people become idealists, I think, like, oh, I wanted to write all of this, or I wanted to be able to do all of that, and I see myself in 5 years doing this. And it's like, no, wait, this isn't your agenda, this is their agenda. And you've to be on their boat, not your boat. And it's like, so then it becomes really this prioritization and like this tug of war type of thing. Yeah.
I feel like you made a really good point there about when you work in a job. So say, we'll just use designer as an example. So you love design, and that's kind of where you start out, and then you get onto management, and it's like, when you originally sought out to be a designer, did we ever think about becoming the management? I've never thought about it that way. I feel like there's some food for thought there. I feel like that's a really good point of like, are we only looking at the now or the 5 years from now, or are we looking, you know, years ahead?
Yes. Yes, like I'm not trying to spill the tea, but I've had some not great managers because like they're great at their job, very technical. I'm not great in grammar. Like they really were excellent. And then they're managing me, but they didn't get set up for that. So it's like, and then they're unhappy because they didn't want to do that. So anyways, like people becoming managers and not being able to if you don't know you want to be a manager, then how do you say no to that too? Like it just becomes a cycle. Oh, I saw there was a comment, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. So Andy here, she is an author. She says that she had left a job that she overall loved, but couldn't advance even though she was constantly being asked to do more work. Then with management changes, things went bad quickly, and I decided it was enough. I think we all have a story very similar to that. So glad though that you were
Yeah.
like, I don't want to say brave enough, but I'm so glad that you had the courage to take that move, because I know that things are going to be so much better for you because of it.
Yes, and it's hard because we're all we're in different economic situations. So sometimes we want to say no, but because of the steady income and it feels safe, it's like, but I have to stay. And so then that becomes a question as, well, how do I prepare my exit? How do I create my safety net so that I can, if the, SHIT, I don't know if we can curse here, but if that hits the fan, then I can leave and, with or without people's, burning bridges. So,
Yeah.
I'm glad you left.
Yeah, you can swear. That's no worries there. But yeah, and I think that in particular is part of the reason why side hustles are becoming such a thing, because people are starting to realize that they can work for themselves and do what they want to do. And if they want to move into those management roles, then they get to decide. It's not like a lower level manager where someone else is dictating. And I think that's kind of where these side hustle jobs are becoming so popular, because people realize that they can take those side hustles and turn them into their own kind of job, and leave the corporate world that way. I think that that's how a lot of people end up sort of moving away from that and into their own kind of thing.
Yes, 100%. Yes. And I'll also say COVID, or the pandemic, through all of its twists and turns, I think shined a light on how we can leverage technology and use these side hustles and things, because I used to commute 5 times a day or 5 times a week. And I had no ambitions to be a YouTuber or anything like that. And that was, at the time, it seemed like one of the only ways, or accessible ways, I should say. But now, I feel like, depending on people's areas and what they're interested in things, but I feel like it's more common, or it can be seen easily for people to be able to get into things without risking so much. They can start something while they're working. If they want to take the time off, they should. That's another thing. What are you supposed to do with the job if life happens? So I completely agree. I think side hustles are awesome.
Yeah, and I feel like they're so much more accessible now. I think before there was kind of this notion of if you were starting a business, you had to have so much inventory, so much this, so much that. But now, because of, social media, you're able to connect and provide services online and, create digital products, and anything you do, you can just market yourself for free on Instagram, and it's such an amazing resource to help people move basically into a career that they want.
100%. And I didn't, and if not for these platforms, I feel like we maybe to some extent wouldn't be able to maybe say the things that we want to say. I would have these conversations, by not the water cooler, that seems very old fashioned, but but in the hallways, on lunch breaks, people would be saying things like, what am I supposed to do? I'm applying to other jobs. How do you keep this job while applying to other jobs? And how do you, and these are the conversations that people, I think, want to be having more out loud, more vocally. but they don't feel safe or seen or don't know how. So yeah, I think these platforms are, for all the good and bad of trying to like not always be on them, they're really important, I think, for people that want to say something and want to find things. So yeah.
Yeah, you're so right about that. And I like what you said about like the water cooler. I feel like the culture in a corporate setting is always very like every man for himself. Um, and it's very like who can reach the top of the corporate ladder, and it's just not very conducive to like actually building healthy, relationships between coworkers. Whereas online, I find in my experience, like everybody here, like online is amazing. I mean, we've connected this way, and I get to learn what your experience is and everything that you have to offer, which is amazing. And in that corporate setting, you really don't get that.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my God. Yes. 100%. Yeah. And even though, we get brought on to be part of a team, and we're supposed to be a team, even for those of us who didn't play team sports, like the analogy is there that we pass the ball and we help each other. That's not there. Everybody is, I don't want to generalize, but most of the experiences I think are not as positive because, like you said, it really is, save yourself, survival of the fittest, and like performing so that you get a bonus at the end of the year for your annual review. And it's not about what you want to grow into. It's more like what are you doing for the sake of them and others, and making sure they have a light shined on them, or the manager looks good. And it's just like, when did this become way out of proportion? I just came in to make money and maybe grow, and now I'm dealing with all this stuff. Yeah, so it's a lot.
It is, yeah. But I feel like this is a really good segue into something else we were talking about how to be independent in that corporate world and how to, I don't even want to say stand out, but basically like, it's because it's so every man for himself, and even though you're on a team and you're supposed to basically act as a team, like how do you as a person still stay like authentic to yourself and do the things that you want to do in that corporate setting? Like it's something that I've always struggled with. Well, now I don't work in a corporate setting because I do my own thing, but it's something that it's very difficult to figure out, like how do I get to be my authentic self, especially when you're in a job that like you don't really love, you're kind of in it for the money. It's tough.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. I feel like a lot of it is, as I don't know if as cliche as it is, but we start with ourselves. Like we need to know why we're doing this, what is it achieving for us? Like the job hopping thing that we started with, like if we know that this is a temporary thing just to make a certain amount of money, get us to our next goal, and we have that in mind, then it's like, okay, I don't have to invest too much in the environment, in the people. And that's not to say don't go to happy hour or don't get to know your teammates, but there's, I think, a little more like emotional intelligence in that, more like limitations, boundaries. And that's hard. Like that's hard because I feel like we get taught so much to do for others or put ourselves out there for others and say yes, but it's like, but you need to selfishly put yourself first because they will not do the same for you. And I mean, it's just the truth. Like, so I think that's a first thing I would say is like being able to know your why. Like, why am I doing this in the first place? Because then that will help like orient like a compass what you're doing, how much you're investing in this whole environment job. Yeah, I think.
Love that. Yeah. I think that I know it gets talked about on social media a lot. It's like, what's your why? Why are you doing this? And I know it can seem silly, but you're so right. I think that it's so, so important because it helps guide us in everything we do. Like if we didn't know why we're doing something, then you're never really going to get to where you want to be. Even like with job hopping, like why do we do it? Like I know for me, it was like I kept job hopping. And I had to stop and think, like, why am I doing this? And then why don't I want to do this anymore? And that basically led me to creating Honeybee Social and figuring out what I wanted and why I wanted it. And part of that was, obviously to not, I don't want to say tied down because that sounds horrible, but like not be stuck in this, corporate setting where I'm working for somebody else.
Right.
And that is why I started it ultimately. So Yeah, I think that you're so right about that. Your why is literally going to guide you through everything,
And,
100%.
and it's so hard because it's like once you know your why, then it's kind of like, like I can't back out. Like I know why I want to do something. And then like, okay, there's fear. There's maybe I don't have the savings. Maybe I don't have the family relationship support to help me through this transition phase. Maybe I need to go back to school. Like all the other things come up. But if we just know our why and it's like, okay, it's not going to be an overnight thing, but step by step, quitting the job and like drafting a resignation letter and putting yourself out there, like all of that can happen once we know why. Because if not, then we just keep repeating, I feel like the same cycle, or get stuck, and then nobody's happy. You're not happy. Nobody's happy. Yeah.
So right, and I think that that's why. So I think like what you are doing is so incredible for that reason, because you are helping people get out of that like kind of plateau of a boring job that they don't love, and especially now because it's more accessible. Not always accessible to everybody, especially when it comes to like finances and stuff, but to have other resources and people like you out there to help guide people in this. I think it's incredible. It's incredible. You're incredible.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. I mean, I feel like when I started my business, I was like, what can I do? Of course, to get out of the 9 to 5, but that like I feel good to stand behind that I would have loved to have when I started. Like that was my whole approach, honestly. And I was like, I remember having recruiters and sending out my resume so other people would edit, and I was like, oh my God, I would love to be that person for other people because no, I mean, once you find your why, then it's like all of the things that need to happen to get to that step
Mm-hmm.
before even quitting the job or then starting the business. Like we both know how much time and like education goes into building a business. Like all of that takes so much energy. And if I could help, put resources together for people to maybe take those steps more easily, then I'm happy to do it. Because we just all want to live our best lives, honestly.
We do, we really do. But I feel like there's something really to be said. Like you went on this journey and this path and you found that you were thinking like, hey, I need, you were having someone look at your resume and doing all of these things. And now basically you've become the person you needed when you started, right? And I feel like that's so empowering to be like, I was here, but now I can see that I'm here. So to really have, you know, that jump where you can see like, I didn't know this a year ago or 2 years ago or whenever. And now you're so knowledgeable about it that you literally help other people do that. And I feel like it's so empowering and so incredible.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like that's why the whole kind of full circle of job hopping, I took it to heart because I was like, okay, you know what? Clearly going up a corporate ladder, invisible ladder is not for me. Like, I don't see that for myself. And the more that I just took the time, I think, to learn about myself, there was a point where I had $1 in my checking account because was not in the place with relationships and having support, and like there was a whole self journey. But if we're willing, I think, to do that work, it's a lot of cliches, but if we're willing to get to what we want in our life, whether that is being a CEO, working for ourselves, like whatever it is we really want for ourselves, that can happen as long as we are patient and like caring with ourselves and honestly do what has to get done. Quit the job, talk to HR about the manager, get your raise. Like all of those things can happen with asking the why, honestly.
Yeah. And I know that like sometimes I find like for myself, part of the motivation comes from action. When I started Honeybee Social, I was working in a different job, and essentially I went to my boss and I said, you give me a raise or I quit. And he didn't give me a raise. So I quit. And at that point, like I had no idea what the heck I was doing. And I was just figuring it out. But the only reason why I did was because I knew my why and I knew that I didn't want to be there and I wanted to be here. And it makes it so much easier to do that when you know what you really want. And even though it can be intimidating, honestly, to make those steps, especially when, you know, you only have $1 in your bank account. I feel like we've all been there at some point.
Oh my God.
But I feel like it's so worth it, though. I feel like it's so worth it.
Yeah, and like even I started to share things to like my family members. Oh, I'm starting this thing, you know, can you share? Can you? And that can also be a little bit demoralizing when they don't see the vision or they don't share. But then that's when having people like you said on social media and having this reinforcement of like, it can happen. Why can't it happen for me? I know what I want. Like it's not going to happen tomorrow, but I know it's worth it. Like all the other things people say, drink more water and all these other things, like the same philosophy applies, honestly. Yeah.
You're right. I always had this thing of like, whenever people say like, oh, life's not fair, like just get over it, that's the way it is. I'm always like, that's so dumb though. Like why isn't it fair? Let's just go do it.
Like no. And I don't know. Like I don't know if it has to be or it should be. Like I know there's a lot of talk about social equity and all of that, and I'm not poo-pooing that at all. Like everybody's experience is their own experience. I just feel like if we wanted to have our own business, nobody was going to give it to us. Like if I had to get in debt, or anybody has to get in debt to get a car or to get to a student loan or a school, like whatever it is, like there has to be effort put into something. And I'm not saying that, you know, we all are on an equal playing field or that we, you know, but it's just like you go for what you want and you put in the effort and you get it. Like it's, I don't know. I just feel like it's in everything. It's in exercise. It's in getting up in the morning and not thinking negatively. It's in, you know, I don't know. It's flossing. I used to be a horrible flosser. Like, I don't know. It applies in everything. Like, but the big things about money is scary and job because we're so wired to look for safety. And, you know, a 9 to 5 is safe. You get insurance and money and steady income. And that could be for some people, like if that's what they want. But then again, like we're talking about the why.
Yeah.
If we know why we're doing something, it makes things easier.
Yeah, you're so right. And of course, there is still that point of like accessibility and a certain level of privilege, but we don't need to get into the nuances.
Yeah, that's another talk.
Yeah, I think that knowing your why is a really good place to start, at the very least. Just knowing why you're doing something makes it easier to do the thing, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I don't know if we're wrapping up, but one of my last points I think is like then when we show up at work, you know, we're different because I'm happy to be here or I really don't, and I know that this is just an income, I just have to do it. Like then it just percolates, it like changes the way I show up because it's really something that we enjoy and like, oh yeah, I'm climbing this ladder, this is what I want to be doing, versus this sucks and I hate this. I don't like being with these people, I don't feel empowered or challenged or whatever it is. And then yeah, so like the why affects everything, honestly. So.
Yeah, I feel that. You're so right. I do remember that basically right before I decided I was going to quit my job. I just stopped caring, and like you can tell. Yeah. I'm sure everybody in the office knew.
Yeah.
But yeah. I feel like we could talk about this for hours, so let's wrap it up. But it was so great talking with you. I think that I got a lot out of our conversation about just job hopping and learning about your why to help you understand where you are in your life and where you want to be. And I think that there is a lot of points there that I know I'm going to think about for sure. So yeah, if you have any last points, then feel free. But if not, yeah, so I'll let you speak there.
Oh no, I'm good. This was so great, and yeah, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this who are also entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, or kind of figuring out what they want. But I think this is such an important topic, And I don't know if it's timely because 2024 is happening and people can start asking themselves why. But I'm so glad for this opportunity and pleasure to meet you virtually in this way. And thank you everyone who joined, and thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I will definitely invite you again. And anybody who's watching, please go give Raquel a follow because she is just a delight. And on that note, everybody, you have a wonderful rest of your day and the rest of your week. Bye-bye now.
Bye.